Hey guys, what's up? Back with another Modern Monday report and a couple of deck ideas and some tournament reports, and I'll kind of get into all of that as we go along here. Um, but yeah, I went out to a couple of events. Oh, not really events, but I guess locals. I get three different locals this week. Um, First time playing at Cut and Shuffle down in I think the Brea area. Then I also went to play in Long Beach and also in Santa Ana, or I guess Tustin. So a couple of different stores, and the different people there. Some people have recognized me, but it's cool. But yeah, I played three different stores for during this weekend and this week, and yeah, I just want to talk about my experiences and test playing the deck because I plan on trying to join a RCQ this upcoming weekend just to see how I do. I think they have a one slot invite to the DreamHack, so I'll give it a shot, see how I do. I think it's capped at 48 players, and only first place gets the invite. There were a couple RCQs running out this weekend. But I just they were too far, or they filled up already, so I couldn't go out and play this weekend. But yeah, start of a new season. I want to give my shot at trying it out and see how I do. So yeah, it's this weekend coming up, and then I think next month there's a 1K going on, and maybe a couple other RCQs that might be in the area, and so I might try to attend those, depending on my schedule. Anywho, yeah, let's talk about some tournament results that I faced during this week um, and whatnot, and then I'll talk about the updates to the deck or the changes I made to this particular deck. So first off, I did try out the blue-white control deck that I showcased off about a week ago or a couple days ago. Tried it out at a tournament for about like 14, 16 people or so in a local tournament, and I would say average. I guess I went 2-2. Definitely could have done better. I think the main issue with that deck, and just like every other um, deck that has very low draw power, is that you'll get very weird hands, which was my experience. Maybe it was just I was unlucky or um, whatnot, but I was getting definitely a lot of I had to mulligan a lot, I guess. There were quite a few mulligans, or I just got some awkward hands. Um, and definitely, there's a couple times where I could have played better, and I kind of either kept really dumb hands, or I just played really stupidly, and got punished for it. So that was eye-opening, I guess. um, but other people with the similar results or similar deck list, they've done well in other tournaments that I've seen. Maybe the style of the deck wasn't too much, or I'm so used to my this the old Snapcaster build that I'm not used to a full package of elementals plus Kahira. Oftentimes I even forgot I had Kahira on the board. I'm so used to playing the regular non-Kahira build that I just kind of wasn't really min-maxing very well. I think even during one of the games, I totally forgot that I might have submitted a 59 card deck in some sense. I was counting my side deck. I was like, oh, I got 14 cards in here. I need to take out one more card from my deck to make it 15 because I'm so used to not having Kahira and not thinking about it that I think during one of my matches, one of the games, I probably had a 59 card deck and a 15 card side deck plus Kahira. So I had that was something I was just not used to, and definitely I think it's just because it's my first time playing that type of style of deck that I didn't do too hot, and it was definitely a lot weirder for me to play. The strong point of that particular deck is that I was able to answer a lot of stuff. The weak point of that deck was that there were, like I said, a lot of awkward hands. I had a lot of mana issues where I just wasn't seeing my lands, or I was seeing too many lands. There were a lot of games where I just got mana screwed and mana flooded. So it was kind of like the extreme in both um, both instances, which made it feel really bad. Now, like I said, it part of Magic comes down to luck, and it could just have been that I had really bad luck, or my deck was kind of sticky and I wasn't really shuffling too well. You know, there's a lot of things I can say, but at least from my experience, I probably just need a lot more practice with it to be more competent with that deck, or watch more gameplays and try to apply it a little bit better. But in the end, I think I just went back to the build that I'm most comfortable with, that I've been playing for about more or less more than a year now, and I kind of went back to playing like ops, as you can kind of see here. I Chalice in the main felt not that great, honestly. There were a lot of times where Chalice came up either too late or I just didn't care for it. Um, every time I did cast it, it didn't seem to really do too much. At least, or at least, um, you know, it might be because my opponent's expecting Chalice after they saw it game one. They may have expected Chalice, so that either they were prepared for it game 2 and 3, or they like sided hate cards against Chalice, or they took out their one drops or something like that. So either way, Chalice didn't feel too good game one, and then game 2 and 3 it felt even less good, just because I felt like my opponents were prepared for it at least. And honestly, I kind of just missed drawing a lot of cards. Like the Esper Charm was probably honestly the best part about that deck, was me being able to use Esper Charm just to draw two. So it's like having a 6 Archmage Charm, which was really really nice. Like when I was running out of steam, I was able to kind of replenish my hands and continue playing. And the decks I did play against that day were, I played against my friend's Simic Control, played against Domain, Scam, and Mono Green Elves. And I think I probably could have gone 3-1. But against the Scam player, I was just being dumb. I kept a 1 land hand, got punished for that real quickly, and then I was just playing really poorly game 2, so I lost that one. But I think I could have done a lot better against Scam, but I was just kind of tilted and whatnot. Against Domain, I was pretty okay against Domain, but game 3 against Domain, I also was really playing really dumb. There was a couple times I could have just removed certain threats, but I kind of did not remove those threats, and the damage added up, and I got Tribal Flame in the face and then bolted in the face. So that was fun. That was just me not being careful enough, and I definitely should have played more carefully rather than trying to go for value. Because obviously my opponent doesn't care. He's just kind of burning through his hand to try to just kill me as soon as possible and not play the long game. So I think in both the games, both those matches that I did lose, I definitely could have played better. And the blue white deck definitely is a strong deck. It's just when I played it, I just played it stupidly and got punished for it. So I'll leave it at that. I went back to converting myself back to the sort of this particular build with the ops and stuff and the Chalice in the side, and I think I like that a lot better. And tournament today, for example, I went two wins, 1 draw, and I think that was pretty decent. First game I played against was against Valakut Gruul, or Gruul Valakut, and then I played against Mono Green Tron, and then I played against Anew, which are besides the Tron matchup, I'm not really too familiar with the Valakut Guru build or in the Anew. I think both those decks I played against maybe once or twice in like the years that the entire year that I've played Modern. So not too much experience with that. But I was able to edge it out a bit against the Tron and the Gruul deck. So I went 2-1 on each of those. So I won both those games, and then for against the Anew deck, we ended up tying. Game 1 went on for like 25 minutes, and I almost decked out, and maybe I should have just scooped a bit earlier, but the portal for Phyrexia was just something I just couldn't answer um, after a while. I misplayed because I think he didn't have any legal targets left in his graveyard, but I didn't know that Portal to Phyrexia can also target my graveyard. So like he stole my solitudes and stuff, and I was like, oh crap, I should have did something about that. I should have read the card better. I thought I knew what it did, but it honestly did something more extra than when I. So that's how I lost game one. Game two, we were like 15 minutes on the clock. Um, the entire game I was in control, so I was pretty ahead, and I was just not letting him resolve anything useful or anything at all really. And I also had to read Shape Anew because I thought the Shape Anew was a cost to sack uh, the tra- um, the artifact. It turns out it's the same thing as Indomitability, so or sorry, Indomitable Creativity. So you can just target that particular token or treasure or food token or whatever artifact and just remove it as they're casting that, and it will fizzle the spell. So that's something I learned today. So that was eye opening. That would have helped a lot game one, but I didn't know that until I read the card. So yeah, so reading the card explains the card. So that's something we learned today. I should have read the cards better and not just presume I knew what they did. So that was on me. Anyways, game two went on for a while, but I eventually kill him. But then we just went into time during game two. But I did manage to kill him. So we never got into game three just because we ran out of time. So I think game one, if I just scooped earlier, I would probably been fine on time. But I was trying to learn what the deck did and stuff like that. And by the time I realized that I was out of answers, we were already like 25 minutes in. So, oh well. Anyways, time to actually talk about the changes of the deck, some ideas, and what I think after piloting it, this like last two, I guess, tourneys, that is a little bit different. So, like I mentioned, I am back on the cantrip build. Now, yeah, with my previous blue-white controlled deck build, this one's more obviously a little bit more Esper, as you'll see. No cantrip meant that I had to not keep greedy hands, and that kind of conflicted with elementals because you need a lot of cards in your hands to pitch for them. And so when I had to mulligan down to 6 or even 5, I just had a lot less resources to work with, especially if I needed to pitch for the elementals. Kahira in the side was nice, but I felt like there was never really a time for me to actually add Kahira to pitch Kahira. Most of the time, if I was adding Kahira, it was because I was out of cards, or I added Kahira just to play Kahira to start doing damage with Kahira, like attacking with him or buffing my elementals. But yeah, I never really added Kahira to pitch Kahira. Maybe I should have done that more often than not, but I never felt like I needed to. But yeah, it's just with 25 lands and really no way to kind of cantrip through your deck, I was finding it kind of hard to find lands or finding threats when I needed them. Especially I was flooding out, flooding out really badly. I think I drew like 5 or 6 lands in a row one time, and I just got tilted without being able to kind of dig through my deck even more. Esper Charm and like Archmage Charm is nice in that you get to draw, but they don't really they're not really card selection because whatever you're drawing is random. You can draw 2 lands, so you could potentially waste 3 mana, draw 2 lands, and then do nothing. You still have no heat in your hand essentially, and that was kind of like the issue I was running into. Like I had to save my Archmage Charms to just draw cards just because I was flooding out, and when I did draw cards, I just drew more lands, which was kind of a pain in the ass, honestly. Same thing with the Esper Charm. Like, they were definitely nice. They did do their job in getting me card advantage, but the card advantage I got was a bunch of lands. So, Yeah, that's just my experience with that. So take it how you will. Um, the opt here, while it is a little weird in a leyline build because turn one you're almost always gonna go a fetch land into like a tap land, so you can never really cast opt on turn one, which is a little weird. But it does allow me to cast it turn two and whatnot and beyond that, which still lets me dig through my deck to about I guess two cards deep, right? Which I find is relatively good. Like it allows me to keep like two land hands and not have to worry too much. I've even kept one land hands with like one or two ops, and I come out fine on mana and stuff like that as the game goes on. So that's what I liked about the ops is like at least with game one I almost never have to mulligan. It's obviously game two and three when I have to side out the ops and put in other cards. That might be an issue, but the other cards in my side deck lately I've been kind of gearing towards like more cantrip style side cards, which have also been pretty good, and they've worked well. But yeah, the other thing I like about the opt, and I think I've mentioned it before, is that it kind of tricks my opponent into thinking that I don't play Chalice, which I've learned is kind of better doing so. So if they especially game two, if you win game one and you're playing like a low to the ground deck like um, prowess or like Murktide or something. Sometimes they see you play opt and they're like, okay, this guy's not playing Chalice, right? They see my Snapcaster, they see my ops, so they expect me not to have a Chalice, and that's where like I go into my side deck and ops or something. Ops are the easiest cards to side out, especially even a matchup against Ragavan, because you don't want Ragavan to hit an op and cast it, so you take out all the ops if you want to, and you can still kind of play Snapcaster and use your other spells like Archmage Charms and whatnot, or counter spells, without needing the op. So that's kind of like the style I've adopted and played, and I think I like it a lot better than not playing the ops. Just being able to go through my deck and kind of get card selection at least game one, and then kind of trick my opponent into thinking I'm not gonna play Chalice. When I do side in Chalice, they're way less prepared for it, at least from my experience, and that usually allows me to kind of cinch the game with the Chalice. Game two and three is just that if they're less prepared for it, good for me. All right, another change here, and this was just kind of made right now, because with my matchup against creativity and shape Anew, I haven't really liked prismatic ending. Main reason is because it's sorcery speed. So while it's great killing things at source speed, like Ragavan that's like on the board, or maybe a Darcy or something like that. Lately, I found that a lot of my threats I need to be able to answer it immediately, and prismatic ending was kind of failing at that in some sense. Like if they went to creativity or shape Anew, I couldn't instant speed target their artifact to get rid of it, or their creature, their goblin token, whatever, right? And so that's been causing me like where I had a bunch of prismatic endings in my hand, and I wasn't really be able to make use of them. Or if I was gonna use prismatic ending, I would just like hit a token, or I hit a an artifact that a food token or treasure token, and that didn't really matter. So I'd be losing out on card advantage, while hopefully slowing down my opponent's gameplay. But it just feels bad. So you rather have some sort of instant speed, artifact removal where you can target like a treasure token or a goblin or whatever, and when they cast creativity or shape Anew, you kind of trade one for one spells. So you hit their permanent, and you hit cause their spells to fizzle, which is really nice. And that doesn't require you to counter their spell in case they have like Veil of Summers or something. So like an instant speed white card flies under Veil of Summers, which is nice. Now obviously you have Fatal Push. They can you're gonna push a Goblin token, for example, or a Dwarf token. They can obviously Veil of Summers, and you'll be kind of in a pickle there. Um, but yeah, it's just something to keep in mind. So that's the strength of a mono white removal, but also kind of like um, you know the weakness of prismatic ending is that it's sorcery speed. So I decided to cut it down to 3. Um, and I decided to try out this card again, the one March here. Um, yeah, so I ran in a couple of matchups where I thought maybe March would help me a lot better than Prismatic Ending, just because it's instant speed. And it's still just 1 mana to kill a goblin token, a dwarf token, food token, treasure token, you name it. Just 1 mana to kill those 0 CMC stuff, which is where I think March might be good here. And obviously, you can still hit like Urza Sagas and stuff like that. And I guess if it's like really late in the game and you need something to remove like a Leyline Binding, I guess you can pay like 7 mana to do so. So the one March I think is fine. I don't think I would ever play more than one, maybe another one inside, but I think I'm just gonna try out the one again for now and just see how that works out. Back then I used to play 2, and I just even at 2 it felt a little too expensive to use. But with like all the shape Anew and all the creativity stuff and even like breach decks, I think one March might fit in here to kind of help combat some of that. Because March does answer stuff that Solitude does not. Solitude can't hit those food tokens. It cannot hit a treasure token. So I think March here is nice. That's another good thing about Leyline Binding is you can hit those pesky tokens and then eventually bounce it back with like a Teferi and reuse it again. So Leyline Binding I think has actually been pretty good for me, at least in this particular metagame right now. All right, next off here I've got one dam. So right now, in terms of sweet, like full on sweet removal, I decided just to play one dam and one verdict. Let me just go ahead and bust out the verdict here. Okay, so in like my last video, I talked about how I like one or the other. Just same idea here, like you know, dam when you need single spot removal, it's still pretty decent. Verdict is just verdict. Also pitchable for the solitudes, so that's why I found I think just 2 sweepers is good, even just maybe one in the main and side the other one. I just have some extra space right now, so I'm just gonna play the 2, one of each, and then none in the side right now in this particular build. So I'm just playing one and one. So if I do draw both, they kind of do the same thing, but they also don't do the same thing. So it's kind of nice to be able to have different versions, and then just kind of select the one that you need the most. Because more than often when I'm playing sweepers, is that I do end up drawing both of them. Sometimes I need one that's uncounterable, so I'll go for the verdict, and sometimes I just need a spot removal, and I'll just go for dam. And it has come up quite often where I use the spot removal on dam rather than its full value. And there's a couple of times where I needed like to actually resolve a verdict against like a living end deck that has Force of Negation to back up their board. So yeah, those are the times where those situations would be favorable to one or the other. Okay, so then next off, 2 Snapcasters. So I decided to cut it down to 2 here, mainly because there's a lot more graveyard hate running around because of prowess and the breach decks right now. And that's super popular, prowess breach and nombo breach and all sorts of name. So I decided to cut down snap to 2 just because of that. I'm expecting a lot more graveyard hate in the main from other decks, so I'm expecting more Relic of Progenesis. I'm expecting more endurances and things like that, which can cause the Snapcasters to be dead in your hand if you have no graveyard. And that has happened where I got Bajuka Bobbed. Even today, I played against the Mono Green Tron, and I played against the Gruul deck, and they both had Relic of Genesis in their decks, so to kind of fight the graveyard. And while it didn't really affect me too much, most of the time my opponents end up just relicing and just to draw a card because they were behind on cards, which was fine for me because I just kept the snap in hand. I was eventually able to kind of rebuild my graveyard to effectively use the snap, so it didn't really matter too much to me. Snap always resolved today, which was really nice. It always resolved and it always got me a value. So I think at 2 it's great. At 3 it just a little bit more dead in this particular format because there's just so much graveyard hate running around for the breach decks. Next off, counterspell, not much to say about it. And then yeah, for Archmage Charm, not much to say about it either. Kind of the staples of the blue-white control decks right now. Alright, so this is a new card I'm trying out, and it's kind of like the same idea with Esper Charm, that you like a 6, fifth or sixth copy of Archmage Charm that draws you cards. That's really, really nice. And so I decided to test out this right here, Shadow Prophecy. So what it is it's basically like it's in between a Archmage Charm and a Memory Deluge, which is kind of weird. And it's also kind of in between like a Sign in Blood, I guess. So for 3 mana, you're still drawing 2 cards, but this time you can look up to potentially 5 cards on top of your deck, and then add the 2 best ones to your hand. It's a really good card selection. The main con of the card, twofolds, is that it dumps your cards to the graveyard, which can be a con or a pro depending on how you build your deck. With Snapcaster, it's pretty good because you can kind of dump your some of your removal to the graveyard, or your counter spells to the graveyard, and still be able to use them with Snapcaster, especially when someone relics you or they endurance you. Prophecy helps you to kind of build your graveyard back up to kind of use as a resource with Snap, which was really nice. But it also burns through some of your cards really quickly. Like if you draw like a handful of Planeswalker, you're gonna be dumping your Planeswalkers to the graveyard. So you're kind of lowering your deck density of threats. So that's the thing, is like it will dump some of your threats, or it will dump some of your lands that you might need. So just be careful of that. So Shadow Prophecy is a double-edged sword for sure. Like it generates you really good card selection, but it hurts in terms of you gotta pay 2 life because you lose 2 life, and it can potentially harm you if you're dumping too much of your deck to the graveyard. Like my game against the Shape Anew deck, I think I casted this thing like 3 or 4 times just because I had Snapcaster and I just kept using it, and my deck was just like thinning out to like maybe 10 cards left in my deck. And I eventually like dumped my ley lines early in the game because I didn't think I needed my ley line bindings early in the game, and that kind of screwed me because I had no answers to Portal Phyrexia after a while, because I think I dumped 2 of them to my graveyard because I didn't think I needed it early in the game, but in the late game I needed my ley lines. But it's just one of those things, so you gotta be careful about using it. So with Domain, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, which is really good. It's better than Deluge. Deluge lets you look at 4 for 4 mana. This lets you look at 5 for 3 mana most of the time. If worse comes to worse, if you have literally just 1 shock land, you can make this become an Archmage Charm. You'll just draw the 2 that you look at. You never want to cast this, obviously, if you have no type of lands. If you have like 1 type, don't do it, or you have no types. So don't cast it if you don't have a type of land, because you'll just end up looking at 1 card or maybe 0 cards, for example. But yeah, at base it looks at 2. At max it looks at 5, and a majority of the time I think I get it to 4 or 5, maybe 3 if I'm just really not doing too hot on my lands. But that's usually even at 3, when it digs 3 deep, it's usually really good. So it's kind of like a I guess a expressive alliteration at that point. Sometimes I'll play this on my own turn if I'm missing land drops, just to grab a land off of it and then play it immediately. So that has really helped with that. With Archmage Charm, that becomes an issue. Like if you're running low on lands, or you just don't have lands on enough lands to play. Like maybe you have 3 lands, maybe you have 4 lands, and you need an extra land, so you can play like Archmage Charm, play an extra land, and have 5 five lands and basically have two up for counterspell. Archmage Charm is such a gamble. Like sometimes I play Archmage Charm thinking I'll draw a land, I'll end up drawing like two like counter spells or two threats or something like that, and it just now I have like um, three tap lands and a one land to do nothing with. So that Archmage has kind of like real risky where Shadow Prophecy playing it on my own turn has helped me a lot. Um, where I just like, oh, I need one extra land or I need one extra white card or something like that. It almost always gets me what I need. Like all the times I've cast it so far, I have basically kind of gotten the cards that I need most of the time. Um, and even has helped me get lands where I was getting like blasted by my opponent. My opponent was playing like today he was Ulomogging my lands away, stuff like that, and I was just able to cast prophecy, grab more lands that I needed, and just kept the game essentially going while taking care of his Ulumog at the same time. So that was what I think was really good about the card. Obviously, the bad part about the card is the life loss. That's the main con, I would say. Your lands are already very expensive to play. It's very like life draining. You're oftentimes fetching almost every turn. Sometimes you gotta fetch and shock, and it gets very painful. So just be kind of careful about it. And that's the only thing I would really say is just your life total gets really low really quickly. But the trade-off is that you're getting card selection and hopefully the answers that you need to kind of just to play the game and hopefully beat your opponents on resources. So I think two is not a bad number. I've seen other builds with like on Discord, like I'm in the control Discord, and some people are playing four, which I thought was a little much because then you're kind of bleeding yourself really quickly. You're milling your deck a little too fast at four, and you're taking way too much damage. You're playing four of these, but it is definitely nice to have a sixth Archmage Charm, a fifth and sixth Archmage Charm that kind of filters through your lands or filters through your deck nicely. Next off, decided to go down two Teferi. Reason why is because I'm playing so many other 3 mana cards. I had to cut it down somewhere, and I kind of prioritize card selection over Teferi at the moment, just to kind of deal with stuff, oncoming threats and whatnot. So there's times you just can't afford to tap out for Teferi. So I decided to just go ahead and cut him down to two and play the third one in the side deck if I do need to bring him in. So yeah, I'm just playing a 3 build Teferi right now. Maybe I'll find room for him somewhere, but right now, yeah, just the 2 is pretty decent. Back in the deck here is Kai's Guile, just to hit the breach decks. Has come up where hitting my opponent's graveyard one time was good enough to kind of win me the game. So I think Kaya's a good card to main right now, either at 1 or 2, maybe even 3. But yeah, that's something kind of like a utility card there. All right, and then for Planeswalkers, just still the same. Jason Teferi has been a pretty decent combo for me today, even where I was able to ult with Teferi and then just play Jason, blasted like people's lands and stuff like that. So yeah, Jason Teferi definitely still put in a lot of work, especially as your threat. One game I did get a little unlucky and a little greedy. I played Jace and Teferi, and I minus the Teferi, and then the turn after that, my opponent blasted both of them with Fury. So that was something I wasn't expecting, but yeah, just gotta be careful of that, right? You don't want to lose both your best Planeswalkers to a Fury. And then Emperor was pretty good. Emperor put in a lot of pressure against like the Gruul deck, against Tron. I just flashed her in and started making a bunch of dudes, and yeah, she's still pretty good at doing that. Just being a threat on her own, and my opponent always had to try to remove her for fear that she takes over the game by herself. And next off, 3 Solitudes. Now, honestly, this card I might even just cut back down to 2. I'm not quite sure yet. I think I still want him in the to have him in the hand. Better to have him than not have him. But obviously, he's kind of like he can be really good and really bad at the same time. Like early in the game, you obviously try to avoid pitching him. Late game, he's great, but he still won't win you the game. But there's still a decent time where I just kind of flash him in and start whacking my opponent. And then the life gain is actually kind of important just because we're playing Shadow Prophecy, which our life total gets really really low, and Solitude's one of our only ways of kind of healing up. The Kai's Guile, I've done that too. Kai's Guile, sometimes I would just cast it just to gain 4 health, just because I was so low on health, and or within range of just getting blasted. Like playing against Valakut today, like I got one game, I had 12 health or 13 health. I cracked land, and my opponent just blasted me for 12 because I totally forgot. He had 2 Valakuts on the board, and then he fetched, and then like fetch twice or something like that, and just blasted me for 12 damage. So, you yeah, I should have played better around that. But yeah, life gain is definitely what Solitude is here for. Sometimes I think. All right, and then Leyline Binding. Not much to say. I've gotten a little bit better with using it and using it against certain things, and yeah, I think it's really good. I've used it to get rid of like Portal to Phyrexia. I've used it to get rid of like Dawnable and Shape Anew targets, and to get rid of other leyline bindings. It does have a weakness though. If you leyline binding something with a like a ETB trigger, for example, just be careful of that. You normally want to avoid that. Let's say if they have an Omnath, I would not leyline binding Omnath. I'd rather Solitude the Omnath than leyline binding it. Namely because if you leyline binding the Omnath and they Presagio you, they get the Omnath back and they get the trigger off the Omnath. So that's just something to keep in mind there. In what you use leyline binding against, you should always use it and prioritize using it against cards that don't have enter the battlefield triggers, or they don't have like an attack trigger, like a Titan or something like that. Well, Titan has both. It has an attack trigger and a ETB trigger. So just be careful what you use leyline binding in, 'cause it can bite you in the butt if you use it kind of like without thinking. Because Presagio is one of those cards that you can't counter, right? So it's always gonna get rid of a binding, and that's when something that you were maybe ahead on tempo or card advantage, and then suddenly they Presagio this, and now you're just behind. So that's been my experience with it, but otherwise it's been a pretty good card overall. Now the mana base is where I kind of want to spend the most time on, because it has changed, and there's quite a bit of interesting things that has happened in the meantime. So for me, I have decided to take out the Bant Trinome and put in the Ketra Trinome here. So idea now is that you will always fetch this turn 1. If you have a fetch land, always search this, and then you can search this turn 2, and you'll be able to binding for 1 on turn 2. Now I did this because I've been finding that people have been blasting my lands quite a lot lately. So I've been hit by Sun Titan. I've been hit by Boseijus. I've been hit by what else? I've been hit by one other card that hits lands. I'm at a loss for words right now. But yeah, I've been hit by multiple just random things that would just target my lands and just kind of get rid of it. And so I decided just to go with this route, because this, if they hit my like Graphines, it's fine. With this one, I will always get the 2 other types that I don't need. With the Bant one, if they hit my like Bant or hit my Graphines, then it still gave me like 4 types and whatnot. It was kind of weird, but with this one, it just guarantees that I have a more diversified mana base up, or just diversified basic type up to always kind of achieve domain. And I'll show you another shock here. So these are the dual lands, right? So the Steam Vent looks out of place because we've already have Ketra Trinome, right? The Watery Graves, because we're still playing black, so we still need a couple of sources of black, and I think 3 has been a good number. So you have 1 here and 2 here. So that's been pretty good. Hollow Fountains, same idea. Our deck's mostly blue white, but we don't really need a third one. These steam vents actually came in handy a lot of my matches, honestly. If they for some reason blasted my Ketra Trinome with like a Boseiju or something, or sometimes I need to, I have Ravine's Tower and a fetch land, for example, and I need to counter someone on turn 2. Obviously, I can't afford to go fetch land into Ketria, because that will only leave me with 1 mana. What I do is I fetch land into a steam vent and shock myself, and then counter and untap, and now I can still leyline binding for 2 mana, and that's come up actually quite a few times. And having off land shock land is actually pretty nice to have. The other land that I thought about maybe putting back in was the Jeskai Trinome, but the problem with the Jeskai Trinome is that it still comes in tapped, and so you still have that issue of not being able to just immediately use the mana. So yeah, so that's what I found, and it's still with the steam vents and the Ketra, and like for this particular setup right here, if you have these 5 lands, you can still prismatic ending for 5. So you can go blue, red, green, white, black, for example, and that will still potentially allow you to prismatic ending for 5, which is come up maybe twice so far in the time in the recent my recent memory. I have prismatic ending Solitude and Fury for 5, so that has come up. I have not recently run into any other Teferis, so if I ever run into like another 5 mana Teferi, then yeah, I can prismatic for 5, I guess. But it's most important against Solitudes and Fury, especially against Scam. There's just sometimes if you're out of cards and you have a prismatic ending facing down a 4/4 double strike Fury, spend 5 mana to kill it. Sure, I'll do that. But yeah, most of the time you're only ever gonna maybe spend 3 to 2 mana, with your prismatic ending, but that will come up. But yeah, for the most part, like I've also had like hands where I had like something like this, whatnot, on turn 3, and this will allow me on turn 3 to actually just prophecy for 4, which is nice. So that popped up too. So just random combination of lands will get you to the domain pretty easily. But since I've been using prophecy, that's what I've noticed is that this random steam vents, it could be a breeding pool also if you wanted to, but the random steam vents or breeding pool will come up, which is nice. Obviously, it's a shock land, so it is painful to use. But yeah, as long as you have either Ketria or a combination of these two, you're usually pretty good, because both your shadow will, your shadow prophecy will get you 4 cards, and leyline is castable on 2, so that has definitely come up a few times. Yeah, so that's the explanation for the mana base here. Alright, and then the rest of the mana base is basically just the same. You still got your basic triple or 1 plains. If you're more in blue-white, then you can bump this up to 4. I find this ratio just fine. So yeah, 11 fetchables total, and then same thing still, the 9 fetchables here, or sorry, fetch lands. Yeah, not much to say about that. And then obviously my utility lands here. Oh, there's the other. Yeah, still Mystic Gates are great. But yeah, I've actually won a game with Hall of the Storm Giants today, so that was pretty good. And clutch another game with, I think, Celestial Colonnade. So I still like both. Granted, if you're playing super heavy domain, you may want to not play them. You may want to play another fetch land. So sorry, not another fetch land, another Trinome. So if you don't play the man lands, or the the Mystic Gates or whatever, then you might want to throw in a third Trinome, or you can also play Otawara, or you can play Castle Vantris. You guys know my opinion on Castle Vantris. I never liked the card. If you're activating Castle Vantris, you're already losing. If you're activating this is fine though. Activating this to push for game and push for damage has, especially if you're on turns, has actually been really relevant. At least from me playing. So I always like having either one or the other. But obviously they have their weakness of coming in tapped, so you're essentially playing 4 tap lands. So just be careful with that. But yeah, that's it for the mana. The deck, that's the side deck has more or less stayed the same. Just made a couple of additions here. So yeah, I went back to Chalice in the side. Yeah, I didn't like Chalice in the main. Maybe I would have liked Chalice in the main if I played 2 Chalice in the main and like a third Chalice in the side. I might have liked that better, but because I have 2 Chalice, I think they're better in the side deck rather than in the main deck there. Hollow Moonlight, in case this is a decent card to take out opt for. Just because this card cycles kind of like opt. Obviously, it only digs you 1 card and it costs a little bit more mana, but I think it's worth it just being a cantrip. It's pretty nice. Someone tried to through the breach me today. I just Hollow Moonlight them, and that was it. He didn't drop anything, so that was kind of easy going there. Stall him for a turn, but that's all I needed. 2 dress downs. Dress down was kind of handy, although it's a little tricky sometimes with dress down. There's a couple interaction that I'm not really entirely familiar with, but dress down's another decent just cantrip. Cost 2 mana, so that's why I meant when I said earlier in the video I like replacing my ops with cards like this. They cantrip, which is nice. Obviously, they cost more mana and they only dig 1 card deep, so it's just how you play. If you like Chalice in the main and don't want to play the op, that's fine. You can just play these instead, and they kind of serve the same purpose. I much prefer this over Shark Typhoon. Shark Typhoon is just kind of expensive to use. Spending 3 mana to make a 1/1 token is not too great, especially when Teferi is not that huge in the format right now. Like Shark Typhoon was a lot better when Teferi Time Raveler was everywhere. Nowadays he's still there. He's still in like the 5-color domain decks and the Omnath decks, but Shark Typhoon just isn't very strong unless you have like a card that can recycle Shark Typhoon, like that land. But yeah, Aethergus was pretty good again today. Used it in combination with Snapcaster, and it has essentially won me a few games there. So I only have room right now for 2. I do kind of miss the third sometimes, but for now I'm just gonna hang with the 2 and see how that goes. 2 vetoes, not much to say. Uncounterable, great against Force of Negation, namely, or Flusterstorm or something like that. Still weak to Veil of Summers, so, but yeah. Additional Graveyard Hate and Guiles, and yeah, it actually came handy against Ulamogs and Kozilek and stuff like that when I played him against Mono Green Tron today. But yeah, the Guiles just being able to sacrifice, hitting graveyards, giving me life. I even sided in against Gruul. So the Gruul deck tried to like burn me out, and I just kept recycling Kai's Guile over and over just to keep healing, and that was actually really relevant. I think at one point he cast a Carnage Tyrant against me, and I just Kai's Guiled it away, which was really nice also. So yeah, it's still a very good card. In the future, though, it might be competing against Shieldred's Edict, which I thought about running in my main deck too, but for now I'm going to try out the March. But Shieldred's Edict is pretty interesting because it hits Planeswalkers, and you can choose which mode to either hit a creature token or a non-creature token. So there's some relevancy there. So that's something to test in the future. And then finally, we got the 2 subtleties and the third Time Raveler. Salty I used a lot today too. Used against Tron, used against the Gruul deck, used against the Shape Anew deck. So like while I think it is definitely playable in the main deck, for me I just found that if I couldn't get the fourth mana in time with like um, or in my main deck, uh, I don't know. It just didn't feel that great in the main. It's a great card, but I think you really have to build around it, and you might even want to play more than two if you're gonna play it in the main deck. I think like three or four even might be the number to play. But yeah, two in the main for me when I did try it. It wasn't bad, but I think it would have been better just to up it, just so you get the consistent subtlety. Because if subtlety comes, if you draw it later, it's kind of bad. So you kind of just want to draw it as early as possible while just keeping it in your hand, and then just being able to just kind of stun your opponent over and over. But yeah, the two wasn't enough. I think when I played it, I think definitely a third copy might even be warranted. But yeah, I think that's really it. In terms of like my matchups today, against Mono Green Tron, the Chalice and the Void did really well. Just won me both game one and two. I drew it early on in the game. And I just Chalice on one against Tron, and they just couldn't do anything. It slowed them down long enough so that I had enough mana to not care what they did. If they Ulamog me or they try to do whatever, I was able to counter it and I was fine. Game one was a little rough though because he Ulamog me twice and just basically blasted my lands to infinity, and I think I had like two island at the end. So, but yeah, I think game two he blasted my lands with Ulamog and I still won because of Chalice and then Shadow Prophecy. I just kept drawing like I think he hit one of my chalices and hit a land. And then Shadow Prophecy that I drew like more lands and I drew another Chalice the Void, so I just re-chaliced again, and then that basically kind of like stalled him for forever. Ulamog's not too scary because you have Solitudes and Kaya's Guile, so like it can always be killed. Almost none of our removal is destruction removal except for like um, Supreme Verdict and stuff like that. But I took out Supreme Verdict and Damn against him, obviously, because that wasn't going to really do too much. But yeah, Kai's Guile, Solitude, Leyline Binding, all great answers to Ulamog. Even though he has Indestructible. Same thing against like Emrakul or uh, yeah, against Emrakul, either the 5 mana or the 3 mana, or sorry, 15 mana or the 13 mana one, either one. This blue white control has a really easy time removing it. I think I mentioned once before. I played against like a mono a Mardu deck through the Breach deck, and they hard casted Emrakul three times on me. I think 3 or 4 times on me. I still won the game. All those extra turns didn't matter because I was able to answer Emrakul each time. So the 15 mana one, not the 13 mana one, but yeah. So yeah, not too bad there. Noble card. I think I played this against the through the Breach deck. The Gruul deck was playing through the Breach to cheat out like the Titan, the Amulet Titan guy, and yeah, I just kind of got rid of that. It was decent. Same thing with Dress Down. Dress Down was really good with it. Aether Gust was really good. Yeah, this against Gruul and Tron was good. Against the Shape Anew deck, it was a little interesting. I didn't side into Chalice because I didn't see him play any like 1 mana counters or anything. I didn't see any Spell Pierces or any Veils even. So I didn't side into Chalice. I just put another Teferi just in case. I think I did Aether Gust, Dress Downs, and maybe Gaia, and for sure Salty. But yeah, game two was really good for me just because I was using Shadow Prophecy multiple times, got the cards I needed, and he never managed to resolve anything. Even though we were in time, I had like 7 cards in hand, and he had like maybe 1 or 2. So game two definitely went really well for me, and game one went really well for me too, up until that I screwed up a few times and I punted the game one, and it took forever. But if we had a game three, I think I would have been fine against him game three. But yeah. So anyways, so that's the deck. I'm gonna try this out at the upcoming RCQ on Saturday. I know this video is going for a while, but I just want to be thorough with everything and kind of explain my card choices and testing and all that. The whole 9 yard there. Anyways, if you guys got any questions, comments, go ahead and leave them down below, and I'll get to you guys when I can. If I play, if I play against you in at a tournament or something, cool. Just let me know. But yeah, um, you know, hopefully you guys enjoy it, and hopefully if you're a control player and you like this style of playing, yeah, I got more of that content coming up. Maybe I'll go back into playing Pioneer sometime soon. I just haven't had the time to go out and play Pioneer. Mostly just been playing Modern here. I might hop back on Arena again, play a couple of like Explorer games, but yeah. Anyways, that's for another time. Um, any other news? I think I might be playing more Yu-Gi-Oh, so you'll probably be seeing a lot more Yu-Gi-Oh stuff in the upcoming weeks as I also prepare for the really big Edison tournament, uh, which is coming up in February. So that's gonna be cool too. So be seeing a lot more of that. Anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you guys next time.